Welcome to Sports Saved My Life. My name is Clayton Freck, and I'm the CEO and founder of Angel City Sports. We know the power of sport to change and in some cases save lives. We hear these compelling stories every day, and we created this show to share them with the world. Enjoy the show, and remember to like, follow, share, and comment. So welcome to Sports Saved My Life. Today, I am thrilled to interview 41-year-old snowboarder and 2018 Paralympian, Michael Spivey. Did I get that name right?
Yes, you did.
Born in Jacksonville, North Carolina, he grew up in Abilene, Texas. A third-generation Marine, he joined the family business in 2005. He survived an IED explosion, somehow unscathed. We'll hear more about this in a minute. In Iraq in 2008. But in 2010, he suffered a second IED explosion that injured his left arm, sprayed some shrapnel into his back and legs, and ultimately lost part of his left arm. He found snowboarding right away, actually, at the 2011 Hartford Ski Spectacular, an amazing event. 6 years later, in 2017, he placed 14th and 11th at the World Championships in bank slalom and border cross. And in the Pyeongchang Winter Paralympic Games in 2018, he placed 18th in both of his events. And while he might be double the age of some of his competitors, he's currently training to make the Beijing team. And man, my money's on you, Mike. I really want you to make it. Medically retired from the military, he spends his summers surfing and golfing out in California and winter snowboarding in Colorado. Seems like a really good life. Married to his beautiful wife, Chris. And actually, we're recording today on his 4th anniversary. So happy anniversary. He also likes to hike and camp and work on old cars. And we've got a great friend in common in Mike Shea, who's been close to our family and the Angel City family for many years. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You got it, man. All right. So first of all, where are you? Are you in Colorado?
Yeah, right now I'm in Colorado for 24 more hours, then head out to Norway. So
good. All right, we'll want to hear about Norway. My first question is always, what comes to mind when you hear the title of our show, Sports Saved My Life?
What comes to mind? I mean, it definitely it's like defines like sports actually did save my life. On more than one occasion. One, whenever I was like first injured and they retired me and everything like that, I was at the hospital. I had to make the choice of either sit in a room and stare at a wall and take a bunch of medication that they were giving me and possibly drink myself into stupidity, or get out and, try a bunch of stuff that I'd never done before. And that kind of got everything rolling. And I started progressing, and then things were going good. A little bit later, things went south real bad again. And that's whenever I started snowboarding like full time, and it, like finding that brotherhood and family again. And just what is it? How do you say it? A drive and a purpose, something to give me something to look forward to every day. I mean, it saved my life for a second time even. So
I saw in an interview, you were addressing this topic, and you said something about it's sort of like having a mission, right? It's almost like being back in the military.
Yeah. Cause I mean, whenever you're in the military, like you have people telling you what to do, and you're like, all right, well, this is our objective. And then whenever you're out, now you don't have your brothers, and sisters that you've been relying on, that you've been, training with, you basically spend all day, every day with, and you know what you're supposed to be doing. Once you hit civilian life again, you're like you have no clue. And so like picking up a sport and once you find a sport that that you like and is actually going to, fit your lifestyle and everything like that, you start digging deeper into it and you start looking at the end goals and you're like, well, how can I improve? And so you start putting in these smaller, goals and everything like that so that you can improve and be the best that you can be.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there's a famous Harvard study, and I'm going to get it wrong because I like remember just enough to be deadly on these things. But like, they looked at like Harvard students and the ones that were most successful in life. And one of the commonalities was the ones that were successful had goals. And that is a beautiful thing about sport. It gives you goals. And I'll just because our commonality is deep with surfing. And so I got back into surfing kind of recently. And my goal was to be better at 50 than I was at 30. And I spent a couple of years really striving for that. Right. I don't know if I perfectly hit it, but like, it was like very motivating. And again, that's me on my own. It's not the team. It's not the brotherhood, but that idea that I want to improve. I want to get to this place. Gosh, right. Just how much beauty, benefit, purpose, it gives you so much.
Right.
What does being on the board give you? Like, where is your brain when you're on that board flying down the mountain?
Okay. Yeah. You have to be more specific because surfing and snowboarding, they're kind of like my yin and my yang.
Okay. Tell me both then. Give me both.
Okay, so
I do both as well. So I'm stoked to hear you're a boarder.
So surfing, I got introduced actually before I got introduced to snowboarding, because it was summer and I was in San Diego, and I started surfing, and while I was on the board, it became my almost my meditation and my kind of like mental release. And I forget, I think one of my buddies was talking to me about like, we were talking about missing a wave and everything like that. And it was like, all right, well, there's going to be another one, forget about that one, worry about what's coming next, on the other side of that, like, forget about that one, go to the next. And so like just the rhythm of the waves and everything like that became my, like my Zen state or whatever. And I was able to relax, and it actually helped me whenever I was working on getting off the medication and trying to get some sleep and everything like that. And then about 6 months later, I went out to ski spec and was riding around with Kep. He's one of the guys that's usually at ski spec. I don't know if he was there. He's a big, tall mountain man with long hair. And, but I think it was like halfway through the first day, he was taking me up like double black diamonds. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. He's like, you'll be all right. And, so I'm falling down left and right, but it was whenever I was getting it right, it was freeing. And then once I've started competing and everything like that, my mind is more focused on that instead of, the externals and everything like that. So I'm focused on, where my board is going. So it's helped with that. And then, like I said a minute ago, it helps with like the daily stuff as far as like, planning on what to eat and staying active, in other aspects or whatever. So that, every aspect of you is continuing to be healthy and growing.
That's a great lesson. When you're really focused on sport, it should, right, if you're doing it right, should have that sort of almost like a holistic impact on your life, right? Sleep and nutrition and just choices right along the way. That's great. Give me one sentence that describes you.
One sentence.
People hate this question, but I love it because they're so not ready for it.
Yeah. So, I don't know, like it's crazy because, most people would say that one sentence would be easy for me because I normally, whenever I'm talking to like you get like 2 or 3 word like answers or whatever. Like whenever I met my wife and we were dating and she met all my friends, they were like, oh yeah, he was talking. He would talk for like hours. And they were like, really? that's weird because like we've heard him say like 8 words the entire like 5 years we've known him. So, but I don't know, like, I don't know, determined or just stubborn, hard-headed. Because I mean they're like, yeah, I'd say stubborn, a little hard-headed, quiet at times, but yeah, I don't know, something like that.
I love it. It was really funny. All right, so walk me through your childhood. Like you grew up in Texas. You had a couple siblings, 3 siblings, right? What was the family structure like? Kind of paint me that picture.
So my youth wasn't really all that great. We were, down in Texas, we were super poor. And at first it was just me and my biological sister, as far as siblings. And then, right around the time that my parents got divorced, things kind of went extra south for us and everything like that. And there was
how old were you when your parents got divorced?
Let's see, I think I was almost 12, because we ended up moving into a shelter for battered and abused women and children. And about 6 weeks after us being there, might have been like 2 months. We had to move out because I was turning a certain age, and technically I was considered a male, over a certain age, and so we had to move out of there.
So that's your mom. That's your mom and your sister and you.
Yes. Yeah. And then a couple of years later, my mom got remarried. We moved into my stepdad Bill's house. And then within about a year, I ended up moving back into with my dad, who was living with his girlfriend at the time and everything like that. And that went good for about a year until I was about 16. And then we had some disagreements and everything like that. And after that, I was pretty much out on my own. A little bit later, my sister moved out whenever she was like 17, almost 18. Up until then, I'd been like sleeping in my truck, my friends' couches and stuff like that. And then we ended up like sharing a house together. And then,
but how did you guys, so you and your sister connect? You're not living with your parents anymore. How do you guys afford the house?
We're both working. Like we'd both switched from regular high school into alternative education program. Where it's like you do everything at your own pace and everything like that. And I was working 2 jobs. Here I was 17 working 2, like they couldn't give me full-time hours or, have me down at full time, but I was still working like 30 to 40 hours a week at both jobs. And
what were you doing? What were those jobs?
Just fast food stuff, washing dishes, delivering pizzas, stuff like that. Because I didn't really have a whole bunch of skills and everything like that. And then being, 16, 17, there's not a whole lot of jobs out there. So, yeah.
What, when you look back, what were, if you haven't already shared, any sort of pivotal, moments or experiences that sort of exemplify your childhood? It sounds rough. Divorce is brutal on kids, no matter what, no matter how old they are. I went through the same thing, really by 10, my parents were divorced. So kind of, rips the family apart, obviously. But any sort of, pivotal moments or memories that jump out at you that sort of,
like as far as what, like, I mean,
just anything that sort of anything, whatever, you get in trouble, right, at some point, or I mean, obviously sleeping in your car is pretty traumatic for a, 16-year-old. But just anything else about when you think back on your childhood now, and even those younger years,
I mean, there are, I mean, I don't know if it would take a long time to like set it up and then explain and everything like that. But I mean, it was, it was, like you said, I was sleeping in my truck, but at the same time, I was also sleeping on my buddy's couch, like, over at my buddy's parents' house or whatever. I'd sleep on their couch, I'd like change every couple nights and everything like that. But, a lot of the stuff that I had to go through, like whenever I did finally end up getting into like Marine boot camp and everything like that, like it was kind of easy for me. Like I was getting in trouble more for laughing about the people that were struggling with some of like the smallest stuff. And I was just like, all right, well, I mean, we're still like, we have roof, we have a bed, freaking yeah. Right. Someone's yelling at me. Congratulations. I've been yelled at literally every day for my life for the last like 18 years. Like this is normal. So, right. It kind of like helped prepare me for, some of my decisions that I made later on in life. So it was like,
that's really beautiful. And I like to say, even just staying on disability, which we haven't even got to yet with you, but disability hardens our kids, right? The kids that grow up with disability, dealing with the inaccessibility of the world or the prejudice of society or whatever, like a lot of them are really wise and mature, by the time they're 18, 20. I mean, they're old souls just because they've had a tougher run.
Kids are mean. Like the freaking, like, even without a disability, like just being in like elementary, middle school, high school or whatever, like kids in general are just mean. And then they find something that they, that's different or whatever. And like, they all kind of like attack and gang up on it. And it can be rough. So
did you ever get picked on or bullied growing up?
Oh yeah. I was, what was it? I didn't break 100 pounds until I was like almost 16. And, whenever you grow up in the middle of Texas where, like football is like the main thing. I mean, most kids, they've been going through, summer camps and everything like that, packing on pounds or whatever. And so they were like, twice my size. So, but that was, yeah.
It's tough. Did you ever get in trouble?
All the time. Like
really?
Almost every day. Yeah. I was always in trouble.
You seem so mild mannered. Like, tell me, what did you do? Like, how did you get in trouble?
Well, I mean, like, a lot of it was because of, like I said, with work and everything like that. Like technically my first freshman year, I showed up to class like 6 days.
The entire year?
The entire year. Yeah. I walked in, I did my finals and everything like that. I passed my finals, but they were like, well, you haven't been here enough, so we have to hold you back. And your parents are now going to be responsible. If you don't show up this next year, then they'll have to spend the week in jail or whatever. So yeah, that was, yeah. And then I started like, about the time I was like 16 or so, I started, smoking, drinking, a whole bunch of other, stupid experiments and stuff like that. So yeah, I was getting in trouble with that. So yeah.
And like, I think of you as this athlete, right? But I know divorce and even poverty, right? A lot of the homelessness, all these things that you experienced can really disrupt an athlete's journey. Were you an athlete coming up? Were you able to do sports? If so, what were those sports? Like, what were you doing?
So, like I said, I, growing up in Texas, especially like, what is it? Like we're like, in Friday Night Lights, one of the football scene or the football scenes or whatever, like that's at our football stadium because it's Abilene High versus Permian Odessa.
Right.
And so football is big over there, but I was small. So I played a little bit of baseball, and right around until they, my parents got divorced, and then it was like, all right, well, we can't afford it because this and that. And I was like, all right, whatever. And then, going up through into like middle school and high school, I spent most of my time in shop class. Like that was like if I went to school, that's where I went, was shop. Yeah, like I don't know. I like building stuff. I like, messing with stuff. I like tools. So I mean, that's why I like, hot rods now. So
that's cool.
But and then high school, like it wasn't like sports necessarily, but I mean, until I got my truck, which was, I mean, that thing was illegal. I had no inspection, insurance, license. I was just driving around. But until then, like I rode my bike like all over town. Like I would do 20 miles on a little BMX bike all over town, every day, just to go over to my buddy's house or, just to go hang out somewhere. So, I mean, as far as like, organized sports, not really, but like activity and stuff like that. I did a lot of like activity stuff.
So when you look back at those early years, and you talked about the learnings and, kind of making boot camp seem easy, laughable. What do you tell that 16-year-old boy that's sleeping in his truck?
I don't know, because it's hard. Because I mean, whenever you're 16 and you're in that situation, and someone could try to give you some inspiring stuff, and you're like, yeah, I don't believe you, because I mean, like I have all this over here, and you've got like this little word of advice for me over here. It's not until,
it seems hollow.
Yeah. It seems hollow. It wasn't until a couple of years later, whenever like I was starting, like I was starting to get tired of like the same old routine. And I was like, all right, I need something more. I need something better. I need something different. Yeah. And that's whenever I, like that kind of brings me up to whenever I finally made the decision to enlist. Because I was looking around. Again, I was working 2 jobs. By this time, I was trying to go to, like, I went back, I got my GED. I started college, and I was almost homeless again, because I was working 2 jobs and paying for school, but I was failing class. So I was having to pay for all these extra classes that weren't getting credit for. And because I was busy working 2 jobs. And then of course I was up all night studying. So I was performing. So it was just like, I can't keep spinning my wheels. So I need something. So, yeah.
And so you joined in 2005. So you're mid-20s now.
Yeah.
So you put in a lot of years, muscling through high school and the GED, and then trying to kind of figure out that post-high school life.
Mm-hmm.
And your father and a grandfather served in the Marines. What's the family?
So my biological father was in the Marines. My his father was in the Marines. And then of course, like my mom's dad was in the Army first, and then he switched over to the Air Force. My stepdad was in the Army. And then like 3 of my uncles were in the military. Like I have like my sister's husband at the time, he was in the Air Force. My cousin, she was in the Army. So like, I mean, there was a lot of background that were in the military. And so whenever I was starting to, like I said, I was starting to spin my wheels, and I was just struggling. I started talking to some of my family members, and I was like, I'm trying to do this and I'm trying to do that. And they're like, well, if you join the military, then, like it's a paycheck for 4 years, like they'll teach you some stuff, and you also have the GI benefits. Mm-hmm. So, I was like, all right, well, let me think on that. And I did for like almost a year. And then finally, like I said, it was just getting worse and worse and worse. And I was just digging myself into debt. And I was like, I got to get out of this town. I'm going to end up doing something even stupider. So yeah.
Well, was there part, because I mean, the normal story, right? The sort of the wayward youth, the troubled youth, joins at 17, 18 and, gets out of Dodge. Was there part of you that didn't want to go that route? It was almost too familiar to you?
Well, so a lot of it had to do with, my grandpa, my dad's dad, he had a bunch of anger. He actually put my grandma into the hospital a couple times, and like did some internal damage and everything like that. And then my dad, whenever he got out, and then of course, like I said, whenever they got divorced, it was due to some physical abuse, and we ended up living in a shelter for battered and abused women and children. And so, like, firsthand, what I saw was like, okay, you go in the military and it like screws with your brain, and you're this violent person. And I've been saying since me witnessing that stuff when I was like 6 or 7, that's not what I wanted to be. And so, and like I said, you witness this and you're like, all right, well, my brain connects the dots over here, and it says you go in the military, you come out, and you're like this. But then after my mom remarried, and of course, like I said, my stepdad, Bill, he was almost the complete opposite of that or whatever. Like he was like, what was it? We've only seen him mad like twice, and that was once at their wedding, and the second time was whenever the plane was about to take off without my sister while she was going through her divorce, right after I got blown up. And he basically halted the plane. He was like, let me off because, my daughter's going through a divorce and her brother just got blown up in Afghanistan. I'm not leaving her, because the next flight was the next morning. And he was like, let me off. And that was like the only 2 times that we've actually seen him, get upset. So like, after, a little bit of maturity and seeing this or whatever, I was like, okay, it's more about the person, so as opposed to just military in general. So I was like, all right, I'll look into it. And like I said, I gave it about a year of thought. And so,
I mean, that's a pretty long time to do the analysis, but hey, we all have our journey, right?
Right.
All right. So you said it earlier, and I think it's fascinating. Walk me through, boot camp, your deployment, deployments, and kind of the experience in the military. Boot camp was a walk in the park, or what?
Well, I mean, it wasn't a walk in the park, but I mean, like I said, there were moments where it's like, like I said, the guy next to me is getting yelled at or whatever, and he's almost breaking down in tears because the drill instructor is like in his face yelling, and I'm just like, all right. And then we go like, and then you have to go hiking and carrying a pack and sleeping out in the field and everything like that, and like your brain will break, like your brain will tell you that you can't do it anymore. Right. Before your body will stop. And so like having the childhood and everything like that, the way that it was, they gave me a little bit of an advantage, I guess. I was like, all right, whatever, just like put your head down, keep moving, whatever. Because with the 2 jobs and school and everything like that, like lack of sleep, and then I ended up, what was it? During after high school and everything like that, I'd lost a vehicle or 2 or whatever. So I was back to riding my bike everywhere. So, I was still fairly physically fit. And, like, I don't know, it wasn't like the easiest thing ever, but it was definitely, like I said, I definitely had it a little easier than some people. And then graduated boot camp, January 6th. 2000. Yeah, 2005. No,
That's cool. So
2006.
it's the anniversary of your graduation from boot camp too.
Yeah. So it was like the anniversary. Maybe I should get to that later, but yeah, I'll get to it later. So I graduated boot camp. Went through the school or engineer school and everything like that, and then got sent to my first duty station, which was over in Okinawa. I was there for 4 years. And then from there,
trained? I'm sorry, Mike. What were you trained to do? What was your specialty?
So I was a combat engineer. So it's a kind of like jack of all trades. We had to learn a little bit of demolitions, wood frame construction, masonry, bridge building stuff, and then obstacles such as like concertina wire or barbed wire. So literally, I mean, it was kind of if they couldn't figure out where something went, they were like, give it to the engineers. So
that sounds like kind of a fun job.
It is a fun job.
If you're handy, if you like that stuff, it sounds fun. It sounds like a hard job for me.
Well, that's where like the year of like research and sighting came in or whatever. Cause, having so many people in the military, they were like, well, make sure that you have a job that you want instead of just going in and be like open contract or, be like, oh, I just, I want to be a grunt or I want to be artillery or, like something like that. Like go through, like I went through and I was like, all right, well, I like this. I like that. I like this. Okay. Well, that would technically, that literally falls into, the engineer category.
Gotcha.
So, so a little bit of everything. And then, like I said, I got stationed over in Okinawa for my first duty station. And for the first year and a half of my enlistment, I was on this thing called a MU, which is the Marine Expeditionary Unit. It's where the Marines get on a ship and they float around and then they go to a country. And, so like the first year and a half of my military career, I was building schools and bridges and, like hospitals and stuff like that. We'd have like, while we were building all this stuff, the townsfolk would come in, would bring the docs in and they'd give them shots and medicine and all that stuff and take care of anything.
So it's almost like you're almost like a humanitarian.
Yeah, it was awesome. So,
what countries did you visit when you were doing that? That's so cool.
So we built a bridge in Bangladesh. We went to the Philippines twice. We went to Cambodia. Where did we build? We were Bangladesh, Cambodia, Philippines. We ended up going to like 10 or 11 countries throughout the whole thing. And then we had a couple of, Liberty ports or whatever to where we, we'd get like 2 or 3 days to go like down in Australia. We had like 3 days there. But yeah, so I mean, it was great. Like the first year and a half, just hanging out, building stuff and, having a good time. And then got off of the MU and then deployed to Iraq from there. It was 2000, like I want to say it was like the end of 2007, 2008 timeframe. And they were starting the drawdown. So they were like starting to, slowly pull everything back and unlike Afghanistan where they're just like, okay, bye. They actually thought about it and they started pulling a bunch of stuff out real slow. And they had us going out and doing route repair, filling in like IED holes in the road and everything like that, as well as route recon. So, and like taking a bunch of measurements and everything like that to make sure that the 18 wheelers could get around certain corners or under power lines and everything like that so that we could get a bunch of the equipment out. And then it was about halfway through the deployment and everything like that. We had, it was a patrol. There was about 7 or 8 vehicles and we were coming back from the main operating base back to our camp. And I think it was like 10 o'clock at night. And we had a load det, a remote control IED go off underneath passenger side tire.
Of the truck you were in.
In the truck I was in, yeah. Luckily, it was an MRAP, so they have the V hole and the big like, you know, almost puncture proof tires and everything like that. And so like whenever it went off, it just kind of like lifted up one side and it slammed it down real hard. You know, we didn't, yeah, like my head bounced off the wall or off the glass. Our gunner actually, he hit the side of the turret. He hit it so hard that it knocked him out. We had our CO with us in the truck. He ended up picking him up off the gun and jumped up in there or whatever, and we took off back to base. I mean, we were only like a mile away, but I mean, we were almost inside the gate. So that was that one. It was, like I said, it was like, you know, it was basically just big bright flash. But,
and was there, talk to me, because I've heard stories about concussion, you know, kind of protocol that I think improved over the years. Mm-hmm. Was there much of a kind of concussion protocol for the men that were in your truck that night?
Yeah. So, and this is one thing that like I had to like bring back up once we got to Afghanistan and everything like that. But everybody in that truck got grounded for a week. You're supposed to wait at least 72 hours so the doc reassess everything to make sure that nothing's going on. So just
because it was a hard enough blast, even though there was no visible injuries.
Right. Yeah. At that point they were just like, all right, well, protocol says that if you're in a blast, you have to wait, you know, at least 72 hours before you can go out on another patrol. And so they just set it up to where we just started because we were doing cycles. We'd do a week on of convoys and then a week on of like fire watch, or, you know, staying on base and like and watching everything. And so they just cycled us out a little sooner. Like, gotcha. I think it was like 2 days earlier, and they were just like, all right, you're just on, you know, you're watching this post for the next week, as opposed to going out. And then that way they could keep track of us and everything like that. And so everybody turned out fine. I mean, like I said, our gunner got knocked out. I banged my head on the wall or whatever, but I mean, it's, you know, you're wearing a helmet, and like I said, I got a hard head. So, I was pretty good. And then the rest of that deployment was easy. Like, I mean, we basically just like start basically packing everything up. And then after that, left Okinawa, went to Camp Pendleton. That was my next duty station. And
hold on. For those that don't know Camp Pendleton, I've been a few times. It's the most beautiful coastline in California. It's unspoiled. There's hardly any buildings on Camp Pendleton near the coast. There are some buildings in the valley behind where most of the town is. Is this like the cushy assignment for Marines, or is it too cushy and it's like you're soft if you think that Camp Pendleton is the place you want to be? Like, what's the Marine perspective on Pendleton? Because it's so amazing for me.
Well, it's also massive. It's also massive. So if you're here, you hate life. If you're here, you love life. Like, if this is your cushy stuff over here, but if you're up in Horno or Christianitos area, yeah, you're going to be carrying a pack every single day. You're going to be hiking mountains every single day with a pack on. You're going to
it's not all cushy.
No, there's different pockets of cush and different pockets of like hate. So,
I mean, last time I was there, I took the northern path, right, in the northern route. And there was like this tank driving parallel to me going 50 miles an hour. Like, it was crazy. I mean, it's just cool stuff out there. I've been driving that stretch my entire life. So it's, I have a place in my heart for Pendleton. So, all right. So you get put back in Pendleton. And then at some point you head over to Afghanistan from there, or what's the path?
Yeah. So we do about a year Year of mock-up, year of training and everything like that, and get ready to go to Afghanistan. And we get word that we're, especially whenever we find out where we're going, which is over in Sengen. The British have been before we got there. The British.
This is the Helmand province, right? Which is, is that right? They're pretty notorious province.
Yeah, it's like right on the Pakistani border. Basically, there was a river separating us, and it's like the main drug route. Like that's where they're taking everything and everything through. And so, like I said, the British were there for like 5 or 10 years, and they were fighting like daily, losing casualties daily. They went in with a big force, and they were able to secure a bunch, and then like trying to maintain that foothold, they couldn't do it because they take pop shots, and slowly their numbers would dwindle, and they'd have to like come back. And then the unit before us, whenever went in, they did the push through Marja and then made it down into Sengen. By the time they made it through Marja and into Sengen, they had 2 vehicles left. Yeah. And they were basically just like, they were there for about a month just to kind of do a rip with the Brits. And they like, even then they were still losing some guys. And then we showed up. Like I said, we had basically 2 vehicles to choose from. And within a couple weeks, one of them was the MRAP, kind of like I was in Iraq, and the other one is the 7-ton, the big up armored like troop carrier. Well, one of the units or squads was going out to either fires or transformers. I forget which one it was, but they took an RPG to the back window. Did not go off, luckily, because everybody had already dismounted, and a couple of guys were actually like walking up to the front of the truck whenever the RPG hit the window and stuck in the 4-inch thick glass or whatever, and looked up and had to change their pants later that night.
My God.
Yeah. So now we're down to 1 vehicle. Well, you can't go out with just 1 vehicle, because then if anything happens, you can't recover it and everything like that. So like for me, it was the next like 2.5 months. For everybody else, it was like 6 months, because this was right after we got there. But literally everything else was foot mobile after that, like walking around.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Yeah. So walking around, and at
Make
first
you dream for those days on your BMX bike.
Yeah. And then especially whenever you find out that I was the idiot out in front with the metal detector, like leading the patrol. Everybody else was like behind me. Yeah. So, but
is that just because you're an engineer, or what? Why are you the guy that has to do that?
Because I'm an engineer. We did have a couple guys, like a couple of the grunts and everything like that. They learned how to run the metal detectors, because out of the 10 of us that got attached to Kilo Company from the engineers, the 10 of us, there was what was it? We lost Benagua, and then we had 5 more amputees, and then the other 4, 3 of them had been in. One was in a he got lucky because the IED got wet somehow, and so it just sprayed a bunch of like aluminum powder on him instead of like fully exploding. And then the other guy, his name is Hess. He was in 4 blasts. Like on the outside, he doesn't have a scratch on him, but there was several mass casualties. He's got lesions on his brains and everything like that. He's the father of my goddaughter. And remember whenever you were asking about the protocol for like brain injuries and stuff like that, whenever I got injured and I was back in at Balboa, I got a phone call, and it was him, and he was like, yeah, I just got hit again or whatever. It was the 4th time. I was like, as soon as he got off the phone, he ended the phone off. I was like, he needs to be grounded. Like he's slipped through. They haven't been paying attention, or a lot of it was the fact that we didn't have the numbers. I mean, we were technically combat ineffective to the point where Congress wanted to pull us out.
So at some point they have to loosen maybe the protocol rules just to sort of keep enough boots on the ground.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's what it was. But at the same time, there were other people that could have been going out on patrol, even to let him have like a day or two to, because I mean, here he was, I mean, he two of his blasts were within like a 48-hour window, because he got hit this day and then went out the next day, and then the next morning went out and got hit again. And I think that's whenever I like brought it to the attention that, hey, like someone's not like writing everything down and pulling him. But like I said, we lost so many guys that our commanding officer had to go to Congress and beg them not to pull us, because we were, like I said, we were technically combat ineffective because of the amount of people that we had lost. So,
oh God. Yeah.
So
it's, I mean, we read the stories, right? There's documentaries maybe have been made over the years, but man, until you hear it first person like this, and I read a lot about this. I've read a lot about both Iraq and Afghanistan. It just breaks my heart, to know that there was men out there fighting for freedom and really just, right, not the right level of resources to do what you need. I mean, it sounds terrible.
Well, I mean,
so
a lot of it was just like the fact of how fast it actually happened. I mean, within the first 3 months that we were there, technically, I mean, there was like 1 or 2 after Christmas, but most of it was like the first 3 months that we were there. We lost 25 guys. We had another, I think it was 50 that were immediate amputees, another 50 that were like me, like it wasn't immediate or whatever. It was like, a couple days to a couple months later or whatever, that were amputees. There was another 50 of us that were that way. And then on top of that, there was another 50 to 60 that were, that took shrapnel or gunshot wound or something like that, weren't fully amputees, but they still received the Purple Heart because they were injured. Yeah. And out of that 50, only like 20, I think, of them actually were able to go back to the unit or stay with the unit instead of like being sent back to the States.
So you were there at this, I mean, it was a bad place to be no matter what, but this time period was just particularly brutal, it sounds like.
Yeah. So we're actually in the history books now. That unit and even the unit after us was hit almost as bad. I mean, it's like the numbers were off by like 1 or 2. But we are the hardest hit unit in Afghanistan for the time that America was there. So
damn.
Yeah. So it was rough.
So I mean, you're painting an amazing, powerful picture for us of what was going on. Talk to me about the day you got injured.
So it was kind of an easy day. I mean, if you consider especially whenever you consider like what our easy days out there were, because since day one we were getting shot at. I was finding an IED a day. We were in a firefight at least once a day. So December 10th, 2010, we're out on a patrol, but we're full gear. We're out about, I forget how far out we are, but our objective was to go out and locate this building where they had triangulated ICOM chatter, and which is like their radio, and to demolish the building. And so we went out there, set up a couple of charges inside the house, or the structure, basically just a bunch of cinder blocks, building or whatever you want to call it. And I set the charge off. Of course, like I said, I did it inside, so it would create extra blast pressure, and that way, it would definitely take the building down, which it definitely did. And maybe a little bit more. than we should have. But I mean, like there was no other structures around it to have to worry about, luckily. But like by doing it on the charges on the inside or whatever, it like the extra blast pressure just like it threw rocks and dirt and everything like that a little further than we thought it was going to.
That's funny.
And then so it took that down, and then we start returning to base. And it's starting to get cold. So, the sun's going down and everything like that. We come back, we come up to a canal. It's probably about 3 or 4 foot wide and about 3 or 4 foot deep. And normally they have trees that they've cut down and they put across to use as their bridges or whatever, simple, just one lane, just walk across. And like I said, it's getting warm, or it's getting cold. So they, we're thinking that they're pulling any firewood that they can to keep them warm at night, because, in the morning it's like 20, 15 degrees somewhere in there. Like there's frost on the ground, like you can see your breath and all this stuff. And so we're not thinking anything about it. I'm talking to McLeod. He's my nav man. And, he's the one that he's always in my ear. He's got a radio, and he's one of the designated marksmen. And he's telling me, like, all right, we're going towards that house, or we're going over here. And I'm watching the ground looking for telltale signs of IEDs, and he's watching kind of the horizon. And so we're sitting there, like, as we're moving, and he's telling me about like where we're going, and it's like, all right, this tree is missing. All right, whatever, we'll just keep going. You want to cross here? No, there's, like, we'll just go up here a little bit, see if there's something that we can like hop across, or something that's not like waist deep water. Normally I'll drop down into the water or whatever, and like check the other side and scurry up the other side, and then the rest of the guys behind me, if it's narrow enough, they'll just jump across. That way they can try to stay dry as much as possible. Well, like I said, it's cold, the sun's going down, we still have like an hour to go, and we make the mistake of coming up to a log that's still across this canal, and we make the decision to cross it. And pretty much like I take 1, maybe 2 steps off the other side, and next thing I know, it's super bright, and then it's super dark, and then the big thud where I land again. I look down, there's, my ears are ringing and everything like that. I look down, all I see is just a bunch of blood and bones sticking out of this arm or whatever. So I started working on my tourniquet and everything like that. And I'm sitting there trying to put this on or whatever, so that I could, because like I said, I look down, all I could see is just red and bone and meat and everything like that. And so Beaver, he's another guy, and Troll, he's about 4 or 5 back or whatever. He ends up leaping over Doc and McLeod, and coming up to me and finish on off my tourniquet and everything like that. Meanwhile, Doc's in the back working on McLeod. He ended up losing both of his legs at the knee, and his left arm at the elbow. Literally
was he right behind you, or where was he relative to you?
Yeah, so technically he was supposed to be he's supposed to be like 10 feet behind me, but just because of like we were always, because we were within talking distance, he was like maybe like 1 or 2 steps behind me,
right?
So he ended up taking the majority of the blast. And then, like I said, Doc, it was working on him. And then Beaver helped me to get my tourniquet on, freaking flipped me over, checked my back, found out that I had a whole bunch of shrum on my back and my legs and everything like that. And then so they start doing a medevac on us and everything like that. And they call it in and we get picked up. We get a phone call, or we find out later, I think towards the end of like after we were out of like, stable and everything like that, found out that it was actually a pull string. So whenever we walked across the canal or whatever, there was a guy in a house way over there, and he had a bunch of string, and they dug into the side of the canal to where we would see it, because it was, like he just packed mud back on there and then sprayed some water and it looked normal. Well, he pulled that cord or whatever, but he didn't know there was a sister patrol, basically paralleling us or whatever over there on the other side of where he was at. And so they heard him on radio saying that he got us and that he was coming and he was like taking off or whatever. And yeah, so they were able to apprehend him. But like I said, we got to the hospital in, we weren't able to talk to each other while we were in Afghanistan. Germany, for my birthday, they wheeled my bed into McLeod's bed. We were like kind of in between surgeries, and we had like, I think it was like 3 minutes or whatever, but just to talk and make sure that each of us was alive or whatever. And then he stayed there for a little bit to kind of stabilize, because like he had, like I said, double below knee, or double at the knee. Yeah. And the arm or whatever, he lost a lot of blood. They rushed me straight to Balboa, because that's where the arm doctors were. You had the leg doctors on the East Coast. The burn unit was down in San Antonio, and then the arm doctors were at Balboa. Unfortunately, it was Christmas time, so the doctors were on Christmas break. So yeah, so come on. Right. Well, I mean, like they one of them got the call and he came back because he was kind of in the area and everything like that. But it didn't do me. It wouldn't have done any good, because he came in pretty much Christmas Day, and he was, like he walked in and you could tell by the look on his face that it was not good news. And he was explaining that during the blast, I lost the ulnar nerve from my elbow to my wrist, 6 inches out of the medial nerve. And then I lost basically my pinky, half my ring finger, and then I had 3rd-degree burns all over the rest of my palm. And so like he was explaining and how long it takes for nerves to grow back and this and that. I was like, all right, so how long can I make a fist again? And he's like, well, no. I was like, all right, cut it off. Give me something I can work with. Knowing that there was like prosthetics and stuff out there. And so he was like, all right, well, first of all, you need to go see a shrink, and then you need to go see this other person, and then this other person. And did he agree with that, with your, like what you wanted to do? He was just trying to soft pedal it and like lead you there, or would he think you were being too aggressive? Well, because like I said, he was trying to explain how long it takes for the nerves to grow back, and I was like, so can I make a fist? And he was like, no. I was like, then cut it off. Give me something I can work with. And because it took me about 4 seconds to decide. You thought you were crazy. Well, right. But at the same time, I was actually surprised whenever I woke up in Germany, I could still see my fingers, because whenever I got blown up, I looked down at my arm and it was basically just hanging there. I was like, great, I just lost my arm. Yeah. And so I had already kind of made up had the realization that I was going to lose it anyway. And so, like I said, he made me go talk to a couple shrinks, and then he had me talk to a guy who had elected surgery, a guy who had elected limb salvage, and then there was a guy who he lost his arm immediately in the blast and everything like that. And after talking to him, the guy that he lost his arm, he was like, I can still do everything. Like I can still surf. He was the guy that like helped start the surf clinic. The other guy, he was like, I can still do everything. I have a bunch of prosthetics, I can do whatever. And then the guy who elected to do the limb salvage, he'd been at it for like 6 years, had 100+ surgeries, and he could take his arm, put it on the table, slide a pin over to the edge, kind of wrap his thumb around it, and then transfer it to his good hand. I was like, and he had only lost a ½ inch of his ulnar nerve. And he'd been at it for 10 years, waiting on it to grow back and make a fist. It was atrophied. And I was like, I went back up. I was like, yeah, cut it off. I'm good with my decision.
And by the way, you just painted, an incredible picture of these 3 cases. And I know limb salvage is a tough call, but I see it a lot. I see it a lot in kids, parents that are reluctant to make that decision. And honestly, the stories are all similar, right? I get it, but it's a tough road. It's a really tough road. So that was really powerful. All right. So let's talk. Incredible story. Just thanks for sharing. And, you made me emotional going through that. There's more. Okay.
So get this. So this is pretty much like the day after Christmas, roughly. And I'm like, cut it off. Give me something to work with or whatever. So they schedule my surgery. Guess what day it is?
January 6th. This is like, for anyone that's listening, it's January 6th. This is like a powerful day for Mike. And I did not know this. So this is crazy.
Well, this is part of the reason why we decided to have the wedding on this day, because, boot camp was January 6th. It was it was a major change in my life for the better. And then January 6th was, it was kind of like this tragedy day. Which I almost forgot something. Whenever I proposed, it was on December 10th, the same day that I got blown up, and Chris's parents' anniversary. So yeah, we were just like, all right, let's just go ahead and stick with the theme and turn tragedy into triumph or whatever. And so we decided to make today the day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so we went in, had the amputation January 6th, and then that was the amputation day.
Listen, everybody's got it hard out here, right? There's no easy stories in disability, but the one place that I do think the vets have a little advantage is, right, the military and the VA. And the sort of the rehab specialists, they all know about sport. They all know about adaptive sports. Because if I look at your journey, it's different than a civilian. You're moving through the system fast. Now it's an arm, amps like to say it's like a paper cut compared to spinal cord injury and other injuries, but like you're moving really fast through the system because not that much later, you're surfing, you're snowboarding. Talk to me a little bit about that process, and then let's talk about your sports career. But like you got into sport quick, right?
Yeah. So what was it? So before 3-5 got hit, which is the unit I was with or whatever, like at Balboa, you had 1 or 2 guys from a unit that would get injured, like, either training op, or they would be the one guy that got injured or shot from a unit, and they would go to hospital and they were lost again. But whenever we showed up, we knew everybody there because we were like, hey, I was just running and gunning with this guy friggin', 2 days ago before we got blown up. And so we knew everybody. We didn't have to try to make friends and everything like that. And then we had an amazing rec therapist. Her name is Marlon Ox. She pushed us to do anything and everything. She would set up like everything, like just to get us out of the hospital. Because, and they as well as Betty with the surf clinic, they even started doing research on us, especially with the 3-5 guys or whatever, because we showed up and it was just like a whirlwind. We were picking up guys from other units that had been there, and like they were showing no sign of improvement. They were sitting in their room, starting to like get addicted to the medications, stare at the wall, like play video games. That's all they did. And we would like, we'd grab them and take them out with us. And they started, like I said, they started doing the research, and they were like tracking, like, all right, this person was here for a year and he had no improvement. Well, now he's doing this and he's like he's actually improving. And then all these other guys or whatever that are doing all the sports, like being out, enjoying sunshine, being active again and everything, learning how to use their prosthetics outside of OT or PT, use it in a real life environment.
Yeah.
The speed in which people were, we were breaking prosthetics left and right because we were pushing them to their threshold. And, luckily, like you said, with the military, we have, that's another thing. I think that's probably like the biggest thing about it is that we have, being combat injured, we have the financial ability to, test a socket, break it, and be like, okay, I need a new one. And they're like, okay, here you go. Whereas, there's a lot of these kids out there, or whatever, like their parents are like, all right, well, you're about to hit a growth spurt. You're going to have to be back in your chair for another year, and until the insurance will pay for, for that new prosthetic. So, I think that's a lot of the reason why the military was able to, push us through so fast and get us back into sports as much,
Right. So you talked a little bit about getting on a surfboard, being your meditation, and snowboard kind of giving you that competitive edge, right? The competitive feeling, having goals and kind of grinding towards it. When did you think you could make the Paralympic team for 2018? Was it at World Championships, or was there a moment before that where you're like, oh, this is getting serious?
Well, so I started snowboarding at Ski Spec 2011, and then I didn't snowboard again until Ski Spec 2012. And then after that, I didn't. Yeah, it was literally for the first 4 years. It was I rode for 4 or 5 days once a year.
Okay,
and then,
so it was sort of a hobby, little fun thing,
right? And then 2014. Because by 2014, they'd been retired from the Marine Corps, and I was actually trying to start a hot rod shop down in San Diego with a couple other veteran buddies that I'd met. And this is where like I said, sports saved my life for the second time, because I was trying to start the hot rod shop. I bought a house, and then I started losing family members left and right, like almost every male member of my family. My stepdad, he was crushed by an RV while he was out helping a gentleman set everything up and everything like that. One of my oldest buddies that I've known since I was like, high school, he died from cancer and everything like that. Also lost my grandpa and my stepsister's husband. We lost like a dozen veteran friends, just either suicide or accidents or, just like random, just lost them. And so, like I said, and then, so dealing with all that, I was back in Texas a lot, dealing with all the funerals and all that stuff, trying to get my head right. And while I was doing all that, one of the guys that we were working with, he was not handling the business proper. And so we ended up losing the shop, all our funding, or all our savings and tools and parts and everything like that. So, but that same year, like it seemed like the only time I was off the couch was somehow the universe was putting a snowboard trip in my lap. Don't ask me how. It was like, hey, we had a guy cancel last night or whatever. We got a trip down to, Chile. Yeah, like literally that happened.
Then
you have to pay for the flight. You have to pay for the flight and like some other stuff or whatever. But I was like, well, yeah, I think I could make that happen or whatever, like once in a lifetime opportunity. And like, it seemed like the entire year after all, like in between all those tragedies, the only thing that was like snowboarding. Like, wow. And even with surfing was actually, it was actually bringing me down because I was starting to overuse my shoulder, because I only got the one arm. So I'm sitting here paddling and I'm missing almost every single wave. Because one, I'm not in the right mindset. I'm not paying attention to the sets. Yeah. I'm a little late and I'm not getting the stroke that I need. So that was actually making things worse. And then I was like, all right, so snowboarding, like it was to the point to where like it was either do something stupid that was like completely the wrong thing. Suicide, or grab my board and a backpack and drive to the mountain and see if I couldn't, clear my head. And if I had to, I was going to sleep in my truck and freeze to death. At least this way, it was more about being stupid instead of like a coward, I guess.
Right.
But ended up linking up with 3 or 4 other veterans that were up in the area, and they were riding
in Colorado, or where were you?
It was up in Colorado, up in Summit County. They were riding out of Copper Mountain, and I started riding around with them. Ended up sleeping on one of their couches for like 2 weeks until me and one of the other guys could find a place to stay. And then we started just riding every single day. And then their coach that they were riding around with was like, hey, I'm booking this competition over in the Netherlands or whatever. Are you going? I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. He's like, you've been riding around with us. You'll be okay. Just, like we'll set this thing up or whatever, and you can go race and compete and see if you like it. And so
that's so cool. Oh my gosh.
Like, it was pure accident and like fate. Like it brought me here. And, the main thing was just to ride. And, once I started riding, you start feeling like different muscles in your legs and you're like, oh, those are sore. I need to go hit the gym. All right, well, now I'm at 10,000 feet or up on the mountain where I'm like 13, 14,000 feet. I'm burning a lot more calories, so I need to start eating better and start like with, and then of course all the activity, you sleep a little bit better too. So like that starts to bring everything back into alignment. And then, you start thinking, and then, like even with the whole, like the goal was to like try to make the 2018 games. Like there was I was like, all right, well, I'm mediocre, like I'm running middle of the pack or whatever. Like, even back then, like I was twice as old as everybody else already. And here I am. I'm going into my first competition. I have less than a year on snow. Like these guys, like if you add it all up or whatever, I had less than like 50 weeks on snow. These guys have been riding since they were like 6. So for the last 10 years, they've been riding, 3 to 4 months a year. By
the way, Mike, I always make the comment that, the congenitals or, kids that get, injured, acquired disability early days, they have such an advantage over, guys like you. Like, come on, like there's been out of, to grow up on a leg or without an arm or whatever, like, it's so different.
I mean, it is, especially whenever you calculate the average person's life, like year to a Marine Corps year. So there's a joke that for every year that you spend in the Marine Corps, it's like spending 4 years in civilian life. So whenever you factor in that I was in the Marines for 7, you tack that on. So technically I'm like 80, because like because it's like, especially with the injuries, because I have they ended up having to fuse a couple of my vertebrae, and then I have out of my lower lumbar, I have like baseball sized chunks out of my back, and then at one point you could shove your hand into the back of my thigh like a bowling ball. So like, I mean, I was an eighth of an inch away from not only losing this left knee, but also being paralyzed from the waist down because of like the shrapnel and stuff like that. So, and then on top of that, 7 years of carrying a pack and, rucking and all that stuff. Just wear and tear on your body. And then, you show up and it's like, all right, this kid, he learned how to snowboard whenever he was like 8, where he would like go off a jump, bounce, roll a little bit, jump back up, laugh, and then do it again. Here I am, like 34, I think, whenever I was basically 35 almost, whenever I started racing and competing. I go off that same jump, I hit, I roll, I slowly get up, I'm like, oh, and then, go about my day, and then get up the next morning, I'm like, and I feel it. Whereas they, they're like, oh yeah, I forgot that I did that yesterday.
But this is just motivation to not crash. Yeah. So just land the jump and don't worry about then avoid that whole thing. All right. So some level of serendipity and luck that gets you into the competitive landscape. And then you make the team for World Championships, right? And then you go to Pyeongchang. Like what if you look at that run, what's a highlight? Like what's the memory that you will take to your grave that means the most to you?
Probably the fact that my wife actually got to see me race. So because like with track and field or swimming or like even with some of the snow sports like half pipe or big air or anything like that, it's one central location. With us, you started pretty much at the top of the mountain and you finished at the bottom of the mountain. So like if someone gets to watch you race, they get to see like 2 or 3 turns max, whereas at the games they had everything up on a big screen. Like I said, my wife's got to go. She got to watch me come down the mountain. And then, but also like the opening and closing ceremonies was like, I mean, like it's hard to describe, but like you're standing in the back waiting for like the other countries to go through, and like you hear all the noise and everything like that. There's a little bit of excitement in there, but once you like basically walk through that door and like there's like thousands and thousands of people just like screaming and clapping and yelling or whatever, like you can't help but go from like ear to ear. And you're just like so
well, I was in Tokyo and I didn't get to go to opening ceremonies. Nobody really did, but I got to watch the teams, all the countries prep, because I was in the village, and then I was kind of hanging with the US team as they prepared and then went to the bus. And just that was amazing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I didn't even get to go on the bus and go to the event, but just watching the teams and countries, and then being with our team and rolling up to the buses was like, it was one of my favorite moments of the whole Tokyo experience. So I totally believe what you say. It's incredible. Okay. So you do 2 events, right? You do the bank slalom and you do the border cross. What's your favorite and why?
The border cross.
Why?
Because so bank slalom, it's a timed run. It's just one person on the course, and like every once in a while they'll have some rollers in there, but for the most part it's just as basically
just you against the clock, right?
Yeah, it's basically just you and it's a couple turns left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. Whereas with border cross, you start out with time runs, but you end up getting put into brackets, and the gate drops it all at once, and four of you go. Kind of, like BMX, whenever they all take off and they're all going, and it's almost the exact same thing. Like you drop out of the gate, usually have like a half pipe, and then a feature, and then another half pipe, and another feature, and then a couple rollers, and then a turn, and then a jump, and then another couple turns, and then another jump, and like you can anything can happen in border cross. Like the last guy, like the guy who comes in dead last or whatever, he can through a couple different luck, and this guy running into this guy, or this guy running catching the edge and pushing that guy out in a turn or something like that or whatever. The guy who is dead last, he can actually be on the podium. Right. It's crazy. So whereas bank slalom, you have to beat your time, but right. You also have to beat everybody else's time. And if you there's no give to it. Whereas border cross, anything can happen, and you're all shooting out of the gate at the same time, trying to make, and then, with bank slalom, I'm just picking the perfect line, this and that, and going down. Well, border cross, sometimes your perfect line has someone laying down in it, and you have to make it around them. And so, right. Yeah.
You like the chaos. You like the chaos. That's all.
Yeah. Chaos is definitely better.
That's so fun. So I know you mentioned earlier, maybe before we jumped on the show, but there's some races coming up for you. What do you need to do to make the Beijing team?
To be officially on the team or whatever, I have to make a podium in it's either you have to make a podium in both border cross and bank slalom, or you have to make 2 podiums in bank slalom or 2 podiums in the border cross.
Gotcha.
And
that's the way to sort of lock it in, but there might be some discretionary slots depending, or is that really the only path?
So that's to lock it in and be fully acknowledged and paid for by the national team. And then you have the points and placement setting or whatever, because technically I'm number 2 in the US and number, I think 12 or 13 in the world. But because I can't, with my category, the top 20 riders show up to every single race. So the top 5 or whatever that are always on the podium, they're always at every single race. And so it's hard to, especially especially with the Italians and even some of the other guys, it's hard to shave off that extra couple seconds or whatever to get up on the podium. And so they, if you can't make the podium, then after that they go to your points and your placement. And so if you have so many points, then they will if there's spots available, what was it, last year in Italy, I finished 7th, which added an extra spot for the arm division.
That's cool.
Yeah. And so Mike Miner, he won a gold and a bronze in Pyeongchang, and he's probably he should catch another podium at Beijing. So his spot was secured because he's made the podiums and everything like that. And then by me opening up that second spot, that allows me to go off points, because we have a couple other riders in the arm division, but they don't they're still young, they're still new, and with the exception of Colby, they don't have enough points yet. Colby just started this year, and because of FIS license and all that stuff or whatever, I don't think he's eligible.
Gotcha.
To
so
go.
You need to do well, but you're in a decent place, and you got to just kind of keep the points coming in.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, like the chances of me going are like pretty high.
Pretty high. And I think I read that you've made the decision that this will be your last quad. This is the last games, but maybe I'm wrong. What's the future post Beijing?
So yeah, my wife and I have been talking about it. I mean, it's definitely like, it's hard. Being this old and then like wanting to plan for the future. And then like, it's also really expensive to do this, and it's a lot of time away. Like I was in Europe for a month and then back for almost 2 weeks. And now like tomorrow I leave for another 3 weeks. And then I'm back.
Yeah. And it's not like you're going to San Diego, you're going to Europe. Like, come on.
Right. Yeah, and on top of that, it's not like I'm going there for vacation. Like everybody's like, "Oh, you're going here, you're going there. How was it?" I was like, "Well, I saw the inside of the airport, saw the inside of the hotel room, and I saw a race course, and then I saw the airport."
You're in the mountains, so you've got some scenery, but whatever. You're not a tourist,
right? And it's rough on the family life, because like I said, whenever you're gone for a month or so at a time, it's rough. So we were talking about it. I may do, if I do shoot for another one, it's like, especially like the next couple of years or whatever, it'll be like 1 or 2 races a year as opposed to like the full circuit.
And then ramp it up as you need it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, reassess the competition and who's there. And if my body can still take it and everything like that. And then maybe like that last year or whatever, like go in and do, enough to where I can, get the points and all that stuff. But yeah, I think it's going to be like a semi-retirement. Like if nothing else, I'm still going to go snowboarding every now and then. It's just not going to be like living in Colorado. Like we'll still be in San Diego, and we might go up to like Tahoe or come out here for like a week or so just to ride a little. So
I think we already hinted at your strategy going forward, but it's called fall avoidance.
Yeah.
Because when you're riding, you get sore or whatever, but like it's the falling that's really the treacherous part of your sport.
Yeah. Yeah. Like we didn't even talk about this. So last month, whenever I was gone for that month or whatever, we had a week in the Netherlands at Landgraf. It's an indoor, it's a bank slalom. And then we went to Finland. Day 1 of the border cross training and everything like that. I'm going over, like I said, there's a half pipe and then there's a feature and then a half pipe. Well, I'm going over that, like I drop into that half pipe, I go over the top of that feature and I turn just a little bit, catch my heel edge and fall about 6 or 7 feet and land on this hand and this wrist or whatever. I get a couple hairline fractures in there. So,
but yeah, you have one hand. Can you not fall on it? Come on.
That's what Chris said. So, but I mean, it was either that or I was going to land straight on my back and then like hit my head.
Hit your head.
So,
yeah. No, I'm not messing with you.
But I mean, it could be worse. One guy dislocated his shoulder and another one popped his collarbone out on that same spot. Yeah. So.
Not fun. Yeah. I think about this a lot. I'm older than you a little bit. So, all right, we're in the final stretch here. And I just got some rapid fire questions for you, and then I'm gonna let you wrap the whole thing up. Fun or interesting fact that I don't know about you?
Fun or interesting fact about me? I don't know. I'm kind of boring.
There's no hidden talents that you've not revealed or obsessions or hobbies?
No, because we touched on like the hot rod stuff. So that's the hobbies and then like the golf and the surf, but no.
All right. What has your disability taught you?
I mean, a lot. There's usually another way to like do stuff, because especially having the one thumb or whatever, you have to figure out a whole bunch of stuff in order to make everything else work. But like it's I don't know, like I think a lot of it with the fact that like with the whole cut it off can be something I can work with or whatever. It's more about like just because of the disability doesn't mean that life is over, then keep pushing. Like there's going to be something, there's something better out there, even with what you get, with the disability. So.
Yeah. Like that. What would you say you've learned from your mistakes or failures?
That's kind of like, because I tend to it takes me a while to learn. I usually make mistakes a couple times, but yeah. Then after that, it's like, all right, let's not do that again. Because but like I said, it usually takes me like at least once or twice to learn that lesson. Like I said, a little hard-headed.
So I don't usually ask this question, but you've had a fair amount of trauma in your life, starting pretty early and then continuing through service. What have you learned about healing from trauma?
So I didn't touch on this or whatever, because like I said, being in San Diego, we do a lot of I do a lot of golf because I mean it's perfect weather for it, right? Mm-hmm. But do you think about whenever you play golf and like you shank one off into the woods or whatever, on your next stroke, if you're still thinking about that, guess what? You're gonna hook that next one. But if you let it go and you focus on what's in front of you, you're gonna lay it up perfect. So,
I was gonna ask you for your life philosophy, but I think you just nailed it right there. I mean, that was beautiful. What stresses you out?
Everything. Seriously. Like I have a lot of, what is it like? Because from being the combat engineer and everything like that, having to look at like, oh, well, that piece of dirt is wrong, like, or that tree branch is, crooked, or like that rock shouldn't be there or something like that, or whatever. My attention to detail is like super hyper focused almost all the time. And so like, it's weird. Like a lot of crowds will like kind of get to me, which is kind of like why I like surfing or golf or snowboarding or whatever. Yeah, there's a handful of people, but especially at competitions. But I know most of the people up at the top of the mountain. Whenever I'm surfing, I'm like, all right, well, too many people here. I'm going to paddle over here. But what stresses me out, it's finances a lot, because like I said, this sport is not cheap, like at all. Especially if you want to go to every competition, because one, you have to live in the mountains where it's, it's like going to like renting Airbnb or, like renting a house on the beach during summer. Like same thing as renting a place up here during winter. It's not cheap. And then all of our competitions are international. Right. So, I mean, that's a lot. And then, and then planning for the future, like you're like, all right, well, I'm spending all this money now. Like, how do I make up for that whenever I could be saving it and like letting it grow? So yeah, I think that's probably my biggest. So
I feel it. Last one of these, but what's your passion?
Was my passion? It's, I don't know. It's the surfing and the golfing and the snowboarding and getting other like whether they're like veterans that are injured or just veterans or, other adaptive athletes, to come out and like, try it and show it out. I mean, I went back and got my machining certs, but I've also, like, the last couple of years I've been working on, getting some other certifications as far as like, becoming a coach and like helping, basically continuing on, that, lineage or whatever that basically brought me in, so that it doesn't die off, so that like the next generation and generations to come have the same opportunities, if not more, to go after their dreams.
Well, yeah, I love that. We got a lot to talk about separate from the show. All right. At the end of the show, I give you the microphone. Anything you haven't said, any shout outs, any life, final life philosophy, whatever you got. Floor is yours.
I definitely need to, I know I touched on it a little bit or whatever. But I need to say thank you first and foremost to my wife for supporting me, especially over the last like 4 or 5 years. Cause I almost gave up the year, like 2017, I almost gave up, didn't go back to the mountains, before the games. Cause I didn't think there was a chance. And she was like, I'm not going to marry a quitter. So you're going to go back. If you don't make it, you don't make it. But at least we know there's not another 40 years of saying what if. And so, that's definitely has a lot of, there's a lot of knowledge in that can be passed on as well. Like at least try, don't give up without trying. And then just, like I said, just her supporting me, over the years and allowing me to continue doing this. Whenever it's not easy for either one of us, especially whenever she's back here by herself. And then, I've got there's a couple organizations, that, if I can, I'd like to throw a shout out to. So the first one would be the Warrior Foundation Freedom Station. It's a local organization down in San Diego. Whenever I got out of the military, my paycheck took 6 months to show up in the VA. So I was almost homeless again. Luckily they have a housing unit down there with like 8 cottages and everything like that. And I was already staying there, and they postponed my rent until I got paid. And then they've literally been one of my biggest financial supporters since I started this. Like they pretty much cover my housing here in Colorado the last 3 or 4 years. And then after that, there's, Simplify Fund. I don't know if you know them or not, but they are like one of their big mottos is, I think is it theirs? But they do a lot of sports activities and everything like that, trying to get like service members out and about. And then, of course, it's I still want to call it DSUSA, but they've changed their name to Move United now. Yes. And they're the ones that do ski spec and they do a ton of other stuff too. And then there's the Challenge Athletes Foundation.
Yeah. It's a good list. I know these orgs relatively well. I don't know the Freedom House, but I looked it up before the show, and it looks really cool. So, real quick, where can people find you? You got a website, right?
I do. It's let's see, I have art somewhere. So what is it?
You got to get this off the top of your tongue, man. Come on.
Well, so I'm used to like, it's logged into my computer, so I don't have to like.
This is marketing, though.
I have baseball cards. It's all my information on the bottom of it. But it's what is it? It's www.michaelspiveyusa.com. And then of course I have my Instagram which is SPYV005. And that should have pretty much all the links to everything else. And then I have a Facebook, Michael Spivey athlete as well. So
okay.
I'm sure that like my wife's probably on the other side of the door, and as soon as we get done with this, she's gonna be like, "You're supposed to do this one and that one."
Well, email us anything that you want to include. We can put in the show notes, but we'll definitely drop the website and some social links. But listen, I think we're at the end. But just from on behalf of myself and the Angel City family, just thanks for your time today. An important day for you. You're about to leave a historic day for you, January 6th. Historic day for our country, frankly, as well. And just really appreciate your journey and your just you gave us a lot today to think about in terms of the veterans experience, and just really, really good stuff. And I love how you're kind of ready to kind of pay it forward, right? And kind of bring other guys on your journey. And I'd love Angel City to be in the mix and be a partner with you. We do have plans to sort of expand some veterans programming this year, and plan to do a kind of a veterans kind of competition weekend. So maybe we can connect on that. But let's keep bringing them through the pipeline and pay it forward. So thanks for everything, Mike. Really appreciate you.
Thank you.